Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar on cloud governance and compliance. My name is John Kennedy. I'm a sales director here at Veraqor, overseeing cloud infrastructure. But for today's purposes, I will be your host and moderator. For those of you who are not familiar with Veraqor, we are a global IT services company specializing in cloud-based modernization, data management, business intelligence, AI, and advanced analytics. Veraqor serves both enterprise and small medium businesses alike, which spans across 5 industries of focus. Those are life sciences, manufacturing, retail, oil and gas, and energy and utilities. From assessments and POCs to pilots in production and solutioning engagements, Veraqor is a true believer in using cloud as an operating system to bring together data, AI, applications, infrastructure, and security to optimize operations and accelerate growth. In today's session, we're going to cover 5 areas of cloud governance and compliance. First, an introduction to governance disciplines. Then we'll move into designing governance policies and security, followed by cost management and monitoring. And then we'll evaluate risk tolerance. And finally, cloud adoption framework. Joining me on today's call is our trusted cloud expert, Safdar Hussain, who is a senior solution architect here at Veraqor. Safdar has extensive experience around developing enterprise scale applications and business solutions, which include cloud enablement, application modernization, integration framework, security, and digital transformation. Very pleased to have Safdar with us today, and will walk us through this content. Without further ado, my friend, the floor is yours. Yes, I can.
All right. Thank you very much, guys. Thank you. Hey, everybody. This is Safdar, Cloud Solution Architect from Veraqor. Today, I will be talking about a very interesting topic, governance and compliance. So, yeah. Here we have agenda. In today's webinar, we will talk about that governance actually means and how we can add business value to organization by implementing governance and compliance. So in today's agenda, we will talk about the cloud adoption framework and governance methodology and its actionable model. Also, we will discuss about the defining initial state and necessary action. And in the last, we will discuss how Veraqor can help you to implement this, right? Okay, so let's start with the cap. The cloud adoption framework brings together people, process, and technology, a strategy that's aligned to your business goals quickly, efficiently, and with actionable guidance. It provides guidance to for your organization's agile business transformation, while cloud governance is a set of process and procedure that really help organization manage and secure their cloud environment, and it's designed to ensure that resources are properly utilized and managed in an efficient and secure compliant manner. So we were talking about the cloud adoption framework, right? We discussed that the strategy that align to your business goals quickly and efficiently and with actionable guidance. It provides guidance for your organization's agile business transformation, while cloud governance is a set of process and procedure that help organizations manage and secure their cloud environment. It's also designed to ensure that resources are properly utilized and managed in an efficient, secure, and compliant manner. It also helps organizations to effectively utilize their resources and reduce cost while providing a secure and compliant environment. If we need to implement the proper cloud governance, this requires proper business policy, protective guardrails, and skilled people that take consistent, disciplined approach to governance. It's continuous cycle of evaluating risk and defining or optimizing the policies to address the risk. There's really no endpoint as such as we do need this balance, right? If we need to implement this properly, so we need to consider some core pillars. So let's see why governance is important. Right? So governance is important because it sets a balance between transformation and risk mitigation. We need this balance to satisfy the need of finance, IT, operations, risk management with the business units who need to deliver services to their customers. So let's explore the methodology underlying govern in the cloud adoption framework. Okay, so with the cloud management best practices, govern drives your organization's cloud adoption efficiency. So guys, focusing on the 4 key exercises, governance help your organization to develop business and technical approaches and move toward the cloud governance baseline to efficiently mitigate new business risks common to the cloud adoption effort. We have tools for you along the way make this easier, right? For example, in step 2, we introduce you to an assessment that helps you evaluate where to start to create your governance MVP. We will discuss in this future slide, but yeah, and for the step 3, we have a tool called Enterprise Landing Zone that creates a secure environment with the basic governance guide rail to get started. We will have an overview of this as well in the future slides. So let's look how governance model look like for your organization. So guys, let's talk about the business risk. First of all, when we approach the governance methodology, we need to start with understanding the risk to the business in moving to the cloud and understand the risk based on data classification, the need for the service availability and application criticality. It's really important to get the tolerance for the risk as this will determine the scrutiny of the policies. Once you have the risk factors that have been determined, you would need to document policy statements which would mitigate the risk and draw boundaries for the cloud adoption. Another important step in defining corporate policy is to have a clear statement on how to monitor, enforce, and remediate against any violation of those policies. Now, this is one of the most fundamental shifts within a digital operating model, the move from a process-based model of the security and compliance to a policy-based one. And Azure Cloud Policy allow defining complex set of rules which can be enforced at both provisioning time and ongoing. Once we have the corporate policy defined, the next step is to begin implementing these policies around the 5 key disciplines of the governance as we have defined the cloud adoption framework. The 5 disciplines, as you can see on the screen, is non-specific or cost management, security baseline, resource consistency, deployment accelerator, and identity baseline. Now, these 5 disciplines, we have learned that they are consistent across most of our customers. There will be some minor variation based on industry, I would say, but you can expect a baseline governance to be established across these 5 disciplines constantly. Now, we have to keep in mind that this model for governance does not align with organizational structure. However, people from the different parts of the organization are critical component to successful governance implementation. Okay, let's discuss on the governance team. Governance develop and evolve corporate policy along 5 disciplines. A team consisting of the cloud architects, legal, security, and HR, finance, develop and enforce these disciplines across your organization to ensure governance consistency. So let's look at how governance set policies across the different pillars and learn governance as an actionable model. All right. So guys, we have 5 disciplines of governance model. Let's start with the cost management. Solid, I would say the solid governance foundation, including cost management control. The cost management establish control and process to ensure proper allocation of cost across business unit, implement the cost guardrail, and analyze the cost of application. From all our customer interactions, cost is the #1 area where they want to start the dialogue. Customers are concerned about how the cloud cost can escalate without proper governance in place. And they also want to have a good fiscal accountability. So primary purpose of this discipline is to identify the potential cloud-related risks related to IT spends and provide the risk mitigation guidance to the business and IT teams, which are responsible for deploying and managing cloud resources, right? So here within this discipline, customer will address the policies around the cost control, budgeting, forecasting, and cost allocation in various business units. So yeah, and we discussed this at the platform level here within the cloud adoption framework, but one may need address the cost at workload level, and that is where we can get the required guidance and support from the well-architected framework.
Safdar, we do have a question. Would you like to take one?
Yeah, sure. Of course, John.
Great. It's a 2-part question. First part, it's related to cost management. Can we see prediction and cost analysis reporting on Azure? And the second part is also, can we limit our budget on a monthly usage?
Yeah, of course. We can see the projection of our the prediction and projection of the cost in a cost analysis portal, right? So in upcoming slide, I would definitely share with you that where we can see the budgeting and the graph and the predictions as well. And yeah, the second question was I think the limit. Yeah, of course we can create the policy cap for upper limit of expenditures or the consumption of the maximum limit and bound that the consumption but have for creating the policies, right? So there's option, of course.
Excellent. Thank you. And thank you to the audience for the question.
Yeah. All right. So guys, the policy for the cost management are primary concern for the cloud users. Develop policies for the cost control for all the cloud platform, right? So you can define cost management policy and budget alerts and caps like VM SKUs, storage SKUs, network SKUs limitation, database SKUs, right? So we can define all the policies, right? So here are some cost analysis from the Azure cost management, right? You can monitor based on resource type, resource groups, and the different filters. Let's look how governance is an actionable model for security baseline in the next upcoming slide, right? So this is, the second discipline in the security baseline. Which is important that we help our customers identify the key policies by which to mitigate the risk around the security resources, data, connectivity, and storage. These policies could be related to the data encryption, connectivity, accessibility of public IPs, or developing a platform services. Right? So here are some tools and services that you can use to implement security-based design. So, which includes Azure Policy, Azure Security Center, Sanital, Azure Networking and Automation, right? So, cloud governance policy and enforcement apply established security requirements across a network, data, and asset configuration. Here are some sample policies, like as mentioned on the screen. Okay, so all deployed assets must be categorized by critically and data classification, some network policies and other stuff, right? You can see over the screen. And also you can, apply some policy definition rules by creating this definition and limit the storage and only allow specific resources in the specific Azure region, and the naming convention and tags and other policy stuff. So we can create over there. Also, we can see the compliance state of our environment and remediation, like mentioned on the snapshot. You can see the snapshot can say that we have 80% compliant, right? And the non-compliant resources are 4. So we can see the remediation and then fix that our environment. So we can monitor continuously our environment is whether it's compliant or not. Okay, this is a very good option on an Azure policy. Yeah. So let's look how governance is an actionable model for resource consistency in upcoming slide, best practice. The third discipline that we want to talk about is resource consistency. It's important for a customer to have a well-architected cloud environment. They need to set up for resilience, management, and efficient operation. In this discipline, we look at the ideas of the self-service, service catalog, and platform to efficiently enable various business units to move at the speed which they require without having to wait for IT. Okay. Now, in this discipline, we want to ensure that resources are consistently configured in such a way that they can be discovered by IT operations, and they're included into recovery solutions and can be onboarded into repeatable operation process. So this is one of the most important area to focus on, because some of the other capabilities of the cloud rely on strong underlying hierarchy and established platform. Yeah. So implement the foundation for governance best practice with the correct resource organization, like define resource consistency policy for naming convention, allow location, allow resource types, allow extension, auditing. So these are the policies for the stuff, right? And the tool that we use mostly are resource manager, template, and resource graph, management groups, etc. There are different design considerations. Like you can see on the left side, we have a service design model, and on the left and the right, so we have the organization unit design model. It depends how you want to organize your resource. Suppose you have a different subscription for the and different account for your environment, like a QA, development, production, and on the other side, an organization unit design model. You have segregated your subscription and account with respect to the departments like HR, accounts, finance, right? So it depends how you want to organize. It's entirely up to you. So regarding management group best practices, it's a part of resource consistency. You can define your own hierarchy-based an organization and environment type, right? For example, prod, pre-prod, QA. So it depends on you, how you would design your hierarchy and how you make your resource consistent, right? Okay. So
We do have a quick question there, if you're able to take one.
yeah, go ahead.
Again, yeah, it's back to management group best practices. The question is this the hard and fast rule that we need to keep each environment on a separate subscription?
No, I mean, this is the best practice, but again, we want to enforce that, emphasize that you have a segregated environment or segregated subscription for each environment. Definitely, there would be a cost involved, but yeah, each organization can decide or design their own way how they manage. Even they sometimes they have a different resource group. Sometimes they have a different accounts. It's up to you. There's no hard and fast rule. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah. Appreciate it. Okay. Okay, guys. The policies for the resource consistency. Policies for the resource consistency ensure the consistent resource configuration through governance tooling. Resources can be configured consistently to manage risk related to onboarding, drift, discoverability, and recovery, right? So let's look how governance is an actionable model for identity baseline best practices.
Oh, we do have another question.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's referring back to the implementing a naming convention. But the question is, can we create a policy to follow naming convention best practice for each individual resource?
Yeah, let me go back to the previous slide. Okay, here you can see we have some best practices of naming convention, like your resource name, your environment, your region. You are concatenating with all this stuff, right? So yeah, definitely we can create the policy to emphasize our best practices and naming convention to ensure the naming standard, right? Yep. Is that answer to your question, John?
I believe it does. Thanks so much.
Welcome. Okay, we were on an identity baseline. So protect your data and asset on the cloud, implementing identity management and access control, right? So let me go back to this is the fourth discipline that we will talk about as identity baseline, and we do need to emphasize on identity in the cloud finally to have a strong set of policy and on identity to enable accountability through role-based authentication or RBAC, right? When we say RBAC, like a role-based authentication, right? And given our user correct access to the right data, resource creation, servicing, reporting, and administration, right? Yeah, you can see an identity baseline ensure that the identity is consistently applied across cloud adoption effort, guiding consistency in the application of identity requirements to decrease the risk of breach, right? Some sample policies are like all asset deployed to the cloud and should be controlled using identities and role approved by current governance policy. All accounts are required to sign in secure resources using MFA, multi-factor authentication method. So, I mean, all these policies you can, implement through RBAC, right? Any question, John, over here?
I don't believe we have any at this point.
All right. So let's look how governance is an actionable model for deployment acceleration, best practice. Okay, guys, so last but not least, the deployment acceleration. Now this ties very closely with the resource consistency. Here we want to ensure that we have a consistent way of getting resources deployed to the cloud environment. Templatized deployment and infrastructure as a code help remove errors which can arise from having people doing manual tasks, and by doing this we can manage to or create the patch, update, or I would say upgrade in a correct manner, right? Like a CI/CD or some other automation framework, right? So a solid, as I said, a solid governance foundation includes a deployment acceleration, DevOps best practices like automation and CI/CD. So, and through deployment acceleration, we can establish policies to govern asset configuration, or I would say the deployment automated or through the DevOps best practices, right? So this is we can leverage the deployment accelerators, and deployment acceleration improve the governance practices with the centralized, standardized, and consistent approach to deployment and configuration provided through cloud-based governance tooling. It accelerates deployment activities, right? So this is the benefit of the deployment accelerator. Let's look at how you can take action and define your initial governance MVP by identifying a starting point. Okay. So guys, with cloud management best practice, governance drive your organization's cloud adoption efficiently, focusing on the 4 key exercises. Governance helps your organization to develop business and technical approaches and move towards a cloud governance baseline to efficiently mitigate new business risks common to the cloud adoption effort. Okay, so let's look at the governance benchmark assessment and how it can help you to get started with your MVP state. Okay, so make governance is actionable by identifying gaps in your governance state, where you are now and where you want to be. Understand the gaps in governance with the governance benchmark tool. This is an assessment, assesses the gap between your desired state of governance and the current state, and recommend an area to start with your MVP. So going back to one of our principles for cloud adoption framework, we want to make sure that we truly helping our customers take the next step in a tangible way, and governance benchmark assessment that we have created enabled for our customers. And our Veraqor experts working with the customer in defining business goals and objectives, and then by each disciplines evaluating what is important and the current state, right? So here, guys, you can see we have a business priority, current state, and the industry benchmark and agree, right? So you can see the current state in the blue, sky blue, and the business priority in the dark blue, right? And we have the gray industry benchmark. So we can compare, yeah, we can see this assessment result, right? Where we are. So this is the example. So
We do have a question,
right.
if you'd like to take one.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
It's actually pertaining to this slide specifically, asking how can we differentiate between business priorities and industry benchmark?
Great question. All right, so John, we have some standard benchmarks like CIS benchmark or best practices, right? So on a top of industry benchmark, we have some. It could be possible, right? Some business priorities have additional, you can say, the policies and rules, and it varies with organization to organization, right? On top of that, I mean, on top of the industry benchmark, we would have some more, compliance requirement and some additional policies, right? So yeah, there would be an additional policies other than what we have on industry benchmark. Yeah.
Thank you very much. And thank you to the audience for the question.
Sure. So let's look how your organization implement a governance MVP approach, like initial govern best practices and configuration that best fit your organization needs, right? Okay, take action and set up your initial governance foundation. So guys, with the cloud management best practice, governance guards and manage your organization cloud adoption efficiently. To establish and maintain your governance baseline, focusing on helping your organization to develop business and technical approaches and move toward a cloud governance baseline, right? So you need to set up, this initial governance foundation, right? So now let's look at what an MVP would look like and get a high-level overview of enterprise skill learning zone is and how you can leverage this to set up your secure environment. So guys, the cloud adoption framework model to governance is a way of approaching governance that allows us to decompose complex and emotional topics into smaller units of actionable change. In the section on defining corporate policy, we changed the topic from the current IT governance requirements to a realistic look at the tangible risk created by cloud adoption. And those can generate the policy and compliance statements and recurring processes, which augment existing IT governance policy. So, and actioning on those policy statement actually is done in one of the 5 bucket of activity that span the governance conversation, right? So in each of the 5 disciplines, the governance team leverages the configuration management capabilities of the Azure Govern and Azure Manage tools to help IT governance, IT security, identity, and network teams apply requirements consistently across all Azure adoption, right? Or the cloud adoption. We will soon look at the tool that establish a foundation for governance on a cloud, which can be used to accelerate all 5 disciplines. These tools will add in ensuring that the requirement of each discipline is consistently applied, audited, and enforced, right? So, yeah. And now let's look on upcoming slide at how to implement a governance MVP based on whether you are in a standard or complex enterprise environment. So the key, the build a minimum viable product for governance to begin your cloud adoption journey. Initially, you can implement a minimal viable product for governance, right? And based on complexity of your environment, I would say they're standard or complex. There are corresponding guide in available for different documentation of the different cloud, right? As like a Microsoft Cloud Adoption Framework. So each guide outlines a set of best practices, based on a set of customer experiences and industry recommendations, right? So guys, at the end of this assessment, we provide our customers gap analysis and suggested areas to focus on immediately for the next step. These are the target areas where one can start to define MVPs or minimum viable products. So they, they have next set of action and deployment plans, and the customer can have an option on how to build or deploy the MVPs. And they can either self-serve using the resource we have pulled together at the documentation for cloud adoption framework, and documentation provide the customer resources, tools, and templates for implementation. Right. So let's have a look. How Veraqor offering for you. So guys, you can accelerate your migration with Veraqor. Here are Veraqor offering. We are providing free briefing sessions and other offering on a special discount that includes assessment and implementation. So feel free to ask if any question if you have. Over to you, John.
Yes, thank you so much, Safdar. Appreciate your time today and all your words of wisdom. As he said, guys, if there's any more questions, or if you'd like to do any follow-up sessions with us, we are happy to do that at your convenience. Just feel free to reach out to us after this call or whenever it's convenient for you guys, and we can get that going. In closing, I think the name of the game here is embrace best practices, right? And align on cloud goals, and things should work out in your favor. So thank you again for joining us today, and we hope to see you all soon.
Thank you. Thank you very much.